gentlemen, to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. I am Joe.
And I am Caleb.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be reviewing the Final Fantasy XIV expansion, Shadowbringers.
Yep. I think now I've finally come to terms with the fact that we're not playing Stormblood. I think I've said Stormblood about 50% of the time, and then the other 50% was Shadowbringers. And I think I even said, like, Heaven's Word once.
There's a lot of S's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of S's in these expansion titles, and I have said Stormblood myself many a time.
Yeah. They
when
should have
actually meaning Shadowbringers, probably on this show.
You know, honestly, they should have gone with more Z's, because that's what I was cutting during some of these cutscenes. If I want to be honest. Shadowbringers.
You were cutting some Z's?
Yeah.
Is that how they say it nowadays? Is taking a nap during a cutscene is called cutting some Z's?
I think that's how they could say it in the olden days. But
Yes, I would like to cut some Z's later, if you don't mind. I think I'll have decaf. Yes, so this episode is coming out about a month earlier than was expected on our end. I don't know about you guys at home. I know we went a whole month without a UFF episode. There should have been a guest episode coming out around then, but we failed and we did not put it out.
yeah. I'll get that out though. Brulo, you know who you are.
You know who you are,
and
Brulo.
now everyone else does too.
That's right. So sorry about that, guys. But you know, we're here, we're queer, and we're ready to do this.
Yeah, man. We honestly, it's been pretty crazy because Joe got the COVID, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That is right.
And
that's why that's what I was leading to when I was saying we were a month early.
Yeah.
I got COVID-19.
Yeah.
And luckily, miraculously, a few miraculous things. First off, I had very few times when symptoms flared up.
Yeah.
Very few. I thought it was allergies at the beginning. I'm working as a groundskeeper right now for the city, and we're driving around in a truck with a small team of people, and although at the beginning of the season everybody was wearing their masks, by now no one really gives a shit.
Nobody gives a fuck.
But also, we were not wearing our masks in the truck anyway because we were in a truck for half the day driving around, right? Like, we're in a truck for a good 3 to 4 hours a day, and we're all in the same cab together, and it doesn't... The 30% reduction in your ability to spread COVID doesn't fucking matter when you have hours in the same small space.
Yeah.
So as a crew, we were just like, fuck it. Like, and we said fuck it like a few months ago. But now, even in the office building, no one's wearing the masks. And that's just because, you know.
After a while, you just get tired of it. I mean, I've stopped.
I'll do it if I go into a store, especially if it's one that requires me to do it. Like, I don't have a problem doing that. It's just
I do when I go in a store, yeah.
when I'm at work, I'm not going to wear it anymore. Like, I really...
You're
most
around
of the
these
time,
same people all the time. Like, if they're going to get it, you're probably going to get it.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, though, because we've had, like, 6 cases, and we've never had a big breakout.
Oh, we got one at the place.
Yeah.
We also have crews of people that clean.
So we said fuck it about the COVID thing, and we all just, like, went through our whole thing. And I didn't even think about it. I mean, I'm so far into this thing. All I do is like sit at home and work on like writing or podcasting shit. And then I go to work. And that's like those have been my weeks.
Right.
Weeks since I got a job. That's what I've had. So I've had a job for about 3.5 months now, working at this place, and I quite enjoy it. It's outdoors. It's good physical work. So I'm getting like, I'm working out a sweat. I actually wear I wear a couple extra layers so that I sweat more because I'm trying to lose weight too.
Oh,
So I'm working a sweat when I'm at my job, and then on the weekends I go for like really long walks, like an hour and a half, and like, you know, I've been losing a lot of weight, which is great, but also like, I love this job. I love the way, I love the pace of it. I love everything about it. It just doesn't pay worth shit.
Yeah.
And it also gave me COVID. So what happened was, It was a Thursday, and I didn't even think about it. Like I was saying, I didn't even think about it when my crew lead guy had a sick day. Didn't even think about it. He had gone to Kentucky the week before, and he talked about them doing like COVID testing every day or whatever. He's an amateur wrestler, so
Oh, geez.
so this is one of his day jobs, and then on the weekend he wrestles for like a local wrestling deal, like some Rocky Mountain. It's like Utah, Colorado, and something. Like they have their own like wrestling team, but he was trying out for another wrestling team in Kentucky, and he had been tested. So when he took a sick day, I just didn't even think that it might have been COVID. But I was also getting allergies on Thursday, and I'd been with that guy in the truck since Tuesday. And I was like, got runny nose and everything like that. And it was really bothering me. I'm like, wow, I thought I had gotten used to it. And like, I had allergies at the beginning of the job, and maybe now that it's fall and we're picking up leaves, maybe whatever the chemicals the trees are putting out are different now. And so I just had like what I thought were really bad allergies for 2 days. And I had plans on the weekend, and I drove to Capitol Reef. And on the way to Capitol Reef, and I have a friend coming from California, another friend coming from St. George. We're all meeting in a hotel in Capitol Reef. I get the call saying, hey, man, this guy just tested positive for COVID. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
So I had to talk with the people coming with me. I'm like, look, you're in the middle of an 8-hour drive. You got here before me. If I had told you that I was canceling because I was exposed to COVID, you'd be very angry with me. And my friend said, yes, that's true. I would be. So he just was like, okay with it. We socially distanced in our hotel room as much as we could. I was in the back seat when the other two guys were in the front seat.
Did either of them get it?
No.
Yeah.
They didn't get it, which was the other lucky thing. So I basically had a mild cold, and I thought there's a cold going around in my family, so I thought it was just that. So it went from allergy to cold, and then I went back, I got tested, and it was positive for COVID.
Nice.
And then my symptoms basically went away, except they would flare up every once in a while. Like I would cough every once in a while. But yeah, I have 2 weeks to just fucking plow through Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers.
No.
And we utilized our time as best we could, and we played that 70-hour game, and the largest chunk of it we played in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I basically put off what I was doing for Nude Clan, and this I think is how I'm going to operate from now on, which is probably not great, but it's going to be focus on one of the things at a time. So I was going to do Ghosts of Tsushima and Shadowbringers at the same time because they're games I need to finish for shows. But I think what I'm going to do now, and this is kind of something I've done before too, but forever probably, is focus on one of those and then the other one after I'm finished. So like kind of rotate.
Yeah, you've been doing that anyway. And that's what I was doing when I was on Nude Clan. I would do one game for like 2 weeks and do the other game for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. I just gave Nude Clan a lot more love for a while because we subbed, months ago to this game, and then we played a little bit.
You were behind in Nude Clan, so I knew you had to catch up, right?
Yeah, and then we stopped for a while, and then I caught up over there, quote unquote caught up. I didn't actually catch up, but I got closer. And then I was like, you know what, Shadowbringers, we haven't done UFF in a while. And I'm enjoying it. I was looking forward to playing the game, which is, kind of weird because there's a lot of boring shit in it. But I was like, I kind of like this expansion. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, and I get to hang out. So
yeah, this is what I've actually had more social interaction in the last 2 weeks than I've had in the last like 8 months because of fucking the disease I got.
Yeah.
I also didn't spread it to anybody. My parents didn't get it. My friends that I went to the thing with didn't get it. There's one guy that I worked with on Friday when I was having symptoms, and he was in the truck with me, and I think he might have gotten it, but I got to confirm that. So he might have been the only guy I spread it to.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. Like you were talking about the guy who brought it back. They do all the testing, and that's the thing. Like, if the president of the United States can catch it, like pretty much anybody can catch it because they test like every time anyone meets with the guy, and someone still had it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's probably because people aren't showing symptoms really. And
Well, they also have this stupid thing in the state of Utah anyway, and I think it's going to be the same in a lot of other places. They go, oh, yeah, unless you're showing a fever, don't get tested. I'm like,
yeah,
I never got a fever. I never got a fucking fever.
Yeah.
My temperature never raised. When I had my worst symptoms were near the end, or in the middle of last week.
No
and by
fever.
worst, I mean like I no longer had like the congestion anymore, and I was coughing less, but I lost my sense of smell for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
That was the one time where I was like, ooh, I don't like this. It smells like someone's welding next to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like that. No me gusta. So that was kind of like, I don't know. That was it. Sorry, what were you about to say?
Well, they are pretty tough. It's tough to go get a test. You basically have to lie. You have to say that
Yes.
you've been in contact with someone that's had it.
That's right.
And I took one months ago, and it came back negative because I was in contact with someone who was in contact with someone who had it. And everyone was like, oh, it spreads through you looking at
That's
someone
right.
that has it.
That's
like,
what I was about to say is how stupid it is. Like, look, man, you need to know before you start spreading it around, before it hits you.
It's not so much that I'm worried about me dying from it and that's the thing. If you have a fever, then your body is actively fighting it to the point where you're cooking yourself. So that's bad.
But I almost visited my not my great grandfather, but my step grandfather.
Yeah.
I almost visited him on Thursday, and then there was like something coming up for the podcast, and I was like,
Yeah, and
gotta
that's the
skip
thing. They make it hard to test, and then you can spread it to people who
we
will
gotta
die.
wait till we have a fever before we test? How
Yeah.
about just wait till you have any of the symptoms and go test?
And for like you and I, that's
If they
fucking
asked us
stupid.
like, "Oh, wait till you vomit," it's like I don't ever throw up unless it's alcohol induced. Like almost never.
Yeah, it's pretty much this thing. I don't know. I think everybody should just get tested like twice a month or something. Then just
The problem is you can get tested and then the next day you can catch it, and if you have a 2-week gap between you catching it and then testing again, you're already going to be done.
I got it within 2 days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I was only exposed to that guy for 2 days, and I got it.
The only way mass testing works is if you're testing yourself every time you do anything, basically.
I mean, I got it, and that showed symptoms within 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to just lock up the vulnerable, man. Just don't go visit your grandpa. As
Well,
hard
now
as
I
it is.
can. I don't have
now
it, and
you
I'm
can.
not going to get it for another at least 4 months, right? So
Yeah,
fuck
at
it.
least we don't even know how long you're immune.
Yeah, there are people who get reinfections, but also it was super mild for me.
Yeah.
So even if I get it again, it's gonna be
It just gets
for me. It's
milder.
gonna be nothing. But
Right.
basically, if I start showing signs for a cold, don't go see Grandpa
yeah. And another thing,
in 4 months.
it's supposed to be more mild overall now, because that's the thing. As it mutates and it becomes more and more difficult to kind of prevent, it also becomes weaker, is what I've heard. We're not scientists or anything,
No, don't listen to us.
But and we're way better at treating it now. You can see that we're like way better now
Yeah.
that we know what it is. So.
Yeah, no, it's been a few months. And
I think it's a good thing that you got it and now you're over it because now you're immune to it.
Yeah,
and you're not going to be.
there's Drew's having a party tonight, and I wasn't gonna go.
And now you can.
And he was like, "Are you sure you don't want to go?" And I'm like, "Drew, guess what? I had COVID last week. You bet your ass I'm coming to your party."
Yeah, I'm like the safest person to be there, guaranteed. No problems coming in, no problems going out.
Oh no! So we
Yeah.
got this shit, man. No problems. Yeah, exactly. So we plowed through Shadowbringers, and the next game we're gonna be playing is Final Fantasy 15, the DLC content. I personally am gonna do New Game Plus and replay the game so I can see the DLC within the context
Yeah.
of the game. Plus, like, be able to, I mean, it's been a couple years. I'm not sure how accurate my memory is going to be about this, but like, kind of remember what 1.0 Final Fantasy 15 was in comparison, because I know they added some cutscenes and stuff to make the story more clear.
Yeah, they changed it up.
Which I think is a bummer. I don't think games should change, but I think it should just be like the product that they put out. Because like, there's people who play 15 that didn't play 15 on release, and I'm seeing them comment in Discord, and they're talking about like story shit, and I'm like, dude, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's not the game I played.
Yeah, it creates a weird scenario where we're talking about completely different things. It's like, well, you said this in your review, and it's like, yeah, that was before they fucking changed the game like 6 times.
Exactly. Like, with that single ring dealio, apparently the game is like fucking crazy easy in that part now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I mean, it's not a hard game, but it wasn't the easiest. That was not the easiest chapter.
No, yeah.
Like, it would take care of the small guys. You'd still have to fight the bigger guys or run away from them or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And, I mean, that's probably the best way to play it, especially because we can New Game Plus it. Like, when we...
Oh, you can use that ring on the super boss now. It just kills him. So
Yeah.
you don't have to deal with that fight. So,
Yeah, well, I think the
That's an improvement.
Adamantoise is garbage enough that I'm not even going to touch it. Plus, you have to do all of the other hunts to get there. And let me tell you one thing: going through that again, if I choose to do what you're doing, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing anything extra. I'm just
Yeah.
going through the story. It'll probably take like 8 hours. The story is,
It's not super.
I mean,
long.
it's long for a video game, but it's not long for a Final Fantasy. So
Yeah, yeah. I will play Comrades again, though. I mean, to get the full experience, I feel like I've got to get Monster of the Deep and Comrades, and like,
so you're gonna play the entire 15 series again.
yeah,
We're gonna
man.
play. We're gonna watch Kingsglaive.
Yeah, watch Kingsglaive for the 4th time.
So people are now arguing with me, and they didn't have this opinion when the game first came out. I didn't hear a single person who said you needed to watch Kingsglaive. And now people argue with us in Discord or on Twitter, you need to watch Kingsglaive in order to understand 15. I'm like, that is bullshit.
You really don't.
Skip that
yeah.
goddamn movie. You know the king dies, and that's literally all the information you need. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You need that information for 15.
It's already in the game too. You just
So.
don't see it.
No, they just talk about it. It's in a scene. It's a very good scene. It's a way better way of telling that story than watching that 2-hour fucking piece of shit movie. That's
Well,
what that
I
is.
think if they would have added that scene in the game, it would have been really good too. But they made a whole movie about it instead. So, like, if you would have had like a cutscene where it was the king dying in Kingsglaive, that would have been a really good cutscene. It would have been weird to have him voiced by Sean Bean all of a sudden, but yeah, I would have been like, okay, well, that's an interesting improvement.
There wasn't that much dialogue of the king. You think they could have paid Sean Bean a couple more bucks to just do the voice acting in the
Yeah,
game?
yeah. Maybe they had a budget and they're like,
Or maybe just like say, yeah, this is part of the movie.
yeah.
Just to get all shifty-eyed.
Or
yeah, you're not getting paid differently because it's a movie.
or they
because
were
it's a
like,
different project?
what can we get out of you for $1 million?
I don't
Like-
think they paid him $1 million.
What can we get out of you for 20,000?
I bet they paid him. I
Yeah.
bet that guy's rate is like $5,000 a day.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a pretty good amount of money, though.
I bet it is. Because that guy does a lot of stuff, and actors that do a lot of stuff generally have like a cheaper rate. But he is a named actor, so it's still gonna be pretty good. I do know for a fact Danny Trejo's rate is $3,000 a day, or at least it was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like 3,500 now.
That's
Plus a walker.
It's the net. Yeah.
You got to throw in a walker for.
No, however much tennis balls cost. We're out of touch with that.
And
yeah.
his and his hospice nurse. You got to pay for that shit too.
Yeah. Is it anti-wrinkle cream, or it'll just turn into a
You don't want to give him anti-wrinkle cream. Are you crazy? No, you got to let him sit in the sun for even longer. He needs to look rough if he's Danny Trejo. Now, if it's Sean Bean, anti-wrinkle cream.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, like, you got to use it so that he doesn't turn into a pile of just flesh. Like, he just a pile of lumpy flesh.
It's like Danny Trejo can star in your movie as long as he got $3,000 a day. Plus, of course, the transportation costs.
Yeah, that's the next goal. We should just make Danny Trejo. That's what I'm saying. Like, we gotta.
I really want Bruce Campbell in my next movie.
We should pay Danny Trejo's ridiculous fee and have him in there for like
That's
3
not
minutes.
a ridiculous fee. That's not a bad fee.
Well,
by the
that's
way.
a lot of money to raise for us, though.
Oh, it is for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous for me, but
But that's what I'm saying. We blow all the money and we barely use the guy. Like, we put him in like
people do that.
as a side
There's
character.
so I worked as a costume assistant for about 2 days on Mythica, which is the local fantasy thing. I've talked about it on the show. What that series has, the guy who plays Hercules in the 90s, that TV show Hercules.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That guy, I'm just blanking on his name right now. But he's a big enough name recognition that people will rent those movies. So they make those movies for about $100,000 each, and they just get like one scene with that guy in it,
Nice.
and that's it. They've also done it with like James Marsden. They had him in like one scene for a movie, a local like fantasy movie. I don't know why the local fantasy, because what they do is they get the money from German television because a lot of people watch shitty television in Germany, apparently, and they pay for movies here that are like genre pictures, really cheap genre pictures, and they make movies for like $100,000 here. That's like a local Utah weird niche thing that's happening here.
Nice.
But yeah, they'll get a person who's a big enough name that they have a lot of followers, and those people will check out the movie and rent the movie or whatever, and it's big enough for the German TV audience to recognize someone, so they'll click on something and watch a movie. But they will just be in like one scene.
Nice. That's funny.
Lots of actors who are, let's say, past their peak in popularity, that they do that all the time. They do that all the time.
Nice.
So yeah, we should. I really want Bruce Campbell. That's who I want. Just for like
That'd
a
be
day.
that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. You ready to talk about Shadowbringers?
Yeah, man. Let's dive in.
Okay, so I did much studying, and I have come up with a 3-page synopsis of this gigantic fucking story and this gigantic fucking expansion. So New Boreas, aka the Warrior of Light, after having dealt with many emperors and all the other bullshit, he's transported into another world by the Crystal Exarch, who happens to be the mysterious voice we've heard all these years. So that's how this expansion starts. You're transported into a new world, and I still don't know the name of the new world. One area is called Yulmore. That's about where I'm at.
Yeah.
Did they ever say what the name of where they went to was?
I think it's so. What it is, if you're familiar with the Dark Tower at all, which I know you're not, it's basically the same thing where there's one main universe that's like the real. It's quote unquote what would be reality, and that's what they call the source, and that's where you come from. So we come from like the center of all things, and like everything else is kind of like a weird refractionary alternate dimension.
Universe, alternate dimension. Okay, yeah.
And so you went into one of those alternate dimensions.
Except that it's not like a mirror world; it's like a different world.
It's not, yeah. So that's the difference. Is normally with alternate dimensions, there's like some things that are fucked up, and this it's like completely changed.
Yeah,
like there's still humans and animals and all that, but
so what you're summoned by the Crystal Exarch to do is to fix a botched spell that has trapped all the Scions, which is the like group of heroes, all their souls in this other dimension, and this world, which is scorched by light. Apparently, there's an impending calamity coming to kill them all, so you gotta save the Scions. But it's way fucking complicated, guys. It's ridiculously complicated. So the story that I'm telling you is not in order in any way. So the first thing you do is you go on a quest to find the first 2 members of the Scions. And when you're doing this, you also come across the Warrior of Darkness himself. So, what I failed to mention for those who haven't played the game, Scorched by Light, literal light, plus these like crazy flying zombie creatures. They've taken over the whole world. So the whole world looks like really bright. There's no darkness ever. And basically outside of the cities, they have these like almost Seath-like things that come out and attack you. And then when you're attacked by them, they're like a zombie. You become one as well. So it's like this like scary kind of threat all throughout the world.
in terrifying fashion too.
Yeah, they're pretty scary looking. They're like statues.
Well, half of them I kind of want to bang, but the other half, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I got a rock for you.
But you come across the Warrior of Darkness himself, who looks oddly like the main character in the trailers for Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
The Warrior of Darkness, whose name is Ardbert. Terrible name for this character.
Yeah, you notice
by
how
the
many
way.
Berts there are in this?
Ardbert.
There's a lot of Berts. Yeah.
I didn't notice a
It's
whole
really
bunch of
dumb.
birds. I
Yeah,
just
there's-
noticed the one.
There's at least 2, and that's one too many.
That's one too many.
Yeah, too many Bert.
How about Minphilius? So Ardbert, you are the only person who can see Ardbert. And he like freaks out, and he basically becomes this invisible companion of yours for the rest of Shadowbringers, and you check in with him every once in a while. So you're fighting off these things called Sin Eaters, which are the sea things. And Nuborius eventually finds Alphanod and Alice, the twins. And then you go to defeat the local antagonist, the Light Warden, who, when you defeat the Light Warden, you receive the light yourself, and you become a Light Warden. But I guess there was a protective spell put on Nuborius, the Warrior of Light, and who's now, of course, the Warrior of Darkness, because you're bringing darkness back to the world. When you defeat the Light Warden, then locally, the darkness returns. The night sky actually returns to the world. So you find that out when you defeat the first one, and you're then trying to find information on how to return darkness to the rest of the world. And when you're doing this, the Crystal Exarch pushes you to rescue a girl oddly named Minfilia from a guy named Ranjit, who we'll get into later. So when you rescue Minfilia, this is when you're reunited with another scion, Thancred. And you find out Minfilia is this strange girl who has been reborn over and over since the troubles of this world began.
Yeah, and this is where it really started becoming like 13-2.
Yes.
And we both commented on this when we were playing, where Thancred kind of resembles Caius in that. Or probably more of a mix between Caius and Joel, is that his name? What the fuck's the kid? Noel. Where they're like really connected, and Yule is the summoner bitch. Yeah. In 13-2 that keeps coming back. She has like dies 1,000 times kind of a thing. And Minfilia is similar to that. She's not getting as destroyed. And Minfilia is more of like a figurehead kind of a thing. Like, it's weird. It's not the exact same person every time, but they have like the same purpose. And that's where it's like both the Dark Tower and kind of the Wheel of Time, where like they're not the exact same person, but they're pretty much the same person. It's like if you were a character on a chessboard and then you died, and then another person would come back, they would be that character on the chessboard. It's not necessarily you, but it's your like place kind of thing. It's weird. And so it's like every fantasy thing just like poured into a cauldron with a bunch of boring dialogue in there.
Oh, we'll get into it.
And a big fat ass. Speaking of, Caleb Craig on the show today.
Vothri is that guy's name.
Yeah.
And Ranjit is like his guard or whatever.
Yeah.
So now comes the biggest chunk of the game, in the part where my brain turned off, I'll be honest. Where you go into each area and locally restore the night by defeating Light Wardens. There's like some fairy creatures and shit. Like,
yeah, you give them the worst Scottish accent of all time.
Oh, it's real. I don't know if the accent is bad. It is annoying though. The character's kind of
she's kind of she's a little crazy.
So, you're able to absorb the light so far because you're being protected by some sort of spell. But after killing 3 of them, you're informed by Y'shtola, another scion that's been trapped in this world, that you might be receiving too much light.
Yeah, and by the way, Y'shtola, every expansion that they come out with, more and more. I'm telling you, next time she's just gonna be there with like a fucking ball gag in. Like the next expansion, I'm calling it now. A ball gag Y'shtola. They're like, every time they're like, you know what? How can we sexualize Y'shtola even more? Secondly, when it comes to Y'shtola, there aren't nearly enough. And by nearly enough, I mean no. There are no scenes of her like looking a different way, you know, because she's blind. Like I want that scene where like everyone's looking at the thing that's happening and Y'shtola's like looking to the back right of what's actually happening.
I forgot she was blind until someone said something in the game.
Yeah, it's because she acts like she's not blind. The game forgets all the time, too. It's like, and she's like, oh, I can see your ether. It's like, what about non-living things like rocks and
Unless
shit?
she sees like Neo in the Matrix and she's like, sees the code.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she knows that's code for giant rocks, so don't walk into it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. She's lying, though. She's not fucking blind.
So they decided they might be able to actually speak with the other Minfilia in, like, I don't know, the crystal world? I don't know how that works. But they go to Amarang and Minfilia appears to them. And when she does, she bestows her full powers on the new Minfilia. So I don't know why this Minfilia is being reborn. I can't get into the lore of this thing that much more than I did when I wrote this up.
Yeah.
But new Minfilia now has all the powers of old Minfilia. And somehow this allows the new Minfilia to be able to find the next Light Wardens, and also gives her the permission from God, I guess, to choose a new name, even though the whole time she could have been like, can you guys call me something else? I know my job is Minfilia, but
Yeah, that's more like my job class.
yeah, that's more, yeah, exactly. But anyway, she's able to choose a new name, and disappointingly goes with Rin.
Yeah, which I always look at and say Rhine.
Yeah, it's tough.
and-
I just had, when I was reading this sentence right here, I had to go, make sure you say it right, Joe.
Yeah,
I said that in my mind.
So she does that, and she also becomes a ginger, and she loses the weird like freak eyes that she had before, and they just become normalized. So she kind of becomes her own person, which is weird because she only becomes her own person after the other Minfilia like fully embraces this human being. It's weird. It's like they're two different halves, which is kind of a theme. It's really sloppily applied
I
to
guess.
Minfilia. It's
So
way better
I don't
later.
really know what old like new Minfilia's powers were if she didn't already have the powers that Minfilia had, but whatever.
Yeah. Plus, why would you give her a new name? It's not like if I found out.
I'm sure
oh,
some FF14 nerd knows the answer, and please don't email me.
It's
Thank
like,
you.
oh, there's another Caleb. Well, I can't be called Caleb. Like, I've never thought that at all.
I'll go with Josh.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, who the what? Why would you rename yourself? I don't give a fuck if there was another one.
I mean, I wanted to like her to go with something that sounded like Minfilia, like you call me Minfilia 2, or what I came up with, which was what is it? Silico microscopic Minfilia coniosis, or whatever I came up with. That was,
Yeah, because she's like a tiny Minfilia,
Yeah.
mini-filia. There was like a dozen of those.
I
that you
wanted her to
had.
come up with a ridiculously long name. That
Yeah.
just like really like is one of the longest words in the English dictionary. That'd be great.
Well, yeah, for such a tiny Minfilia too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she's got about 1.5 feet of powers taken away from her, from the other Minfilia. So, Vothri turns out to be the last Light Warden. Vothri is Jabba the Hutt, who rules his land through fear and gluttony. There's like a 2-class system, basically. Like the poor people live on the outside, and then this building, there's rich people, and everything is provided for them. And they can't make any choices in life or whatever, and Vothri just rules them all.
Yeah, it's like in Futurama where you're assigned a job kind of a thing. Like, but it's weird. You get like sponsors. You get like a sponsorship to come into the city.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, what it is like Freemasons. So you need to know 2 Freemasons that vouch for you in order to become a Freemason.
Exactly, and you have to not disappoint the Freemasons or they boot your ass
right.
out
You
through.
in order to get into the club.
Yeah, they throw you physically off of the airborne island. And it's really crazy because they're feeding you this stuff called, like, I don't know, it's like mule mill or some shit. And it's actually made of the creatures that you're fighting, the Sin Eaters. And it's slowly turning these people into Sin Eaters. So it's like a weird brainwashing thing that also turns him into the people that the beasts that he then controls as his army. So it's kind of a crazy thing that he's doing to the poor people. And it's... it's weird. It's a weird situation that he's got.
Yeah,
going.
so basically Vothri seems like the big bad in the story, and you're like, gotta go take care of him because he looks and acts like Jabba the Hutt, plus like an extra face tit
Yeah,
to get thrown in there.
gotta love the face tit. That's a good touch.
Yeah, it is a good touch. So his protective general, Ranjit, the guy who you rescued Minfilia from, you eventually defeat him, and this causes Vothri to flee into a big floating rock thing. And then the citizens around, they then like make this big golem to carry you and Scions up to the rock so you can finally defeat him. However, when you do defeat him, you are then unable to withhold all that light this time around. and the Crystal Exarch tries to take the light away from you and sacrifice himself in the process. And this would have killed the Exarch, but a guy who we'll get into, his name's Emmett Selk, an immortal Ascian who is weaved in and out of the story as like a quirky side character.
Yeah, he's basically Arden in this. He's
Yeah.
The guy you know is bad, but he's broing
Like
up
Chapter
with you.
8 Arden, where he's like just talking to you and like chilling out and like kind of like helping you, kind of weird guy. Yeah, he basically has the same function.
Yeah.
This quirky character, this guy, he takes the light, I guess, and all the power that holds, because he's an Ascian, he can stand it, and he takes off. And so
nasty.
you and the Crystal Exarch have to recover because it was really tough on you, I guess. And Rin is able to use her magic to save you, but in so doing, like, all the light is put back into the world. So all that work you did is for nothing. All that 60 hours of content.
Yep.
For temporarily, of course.
And it might feel that way already in real life, but then it felt like that way in the game, and that was kind of a slap.
So Emmett Selk, he's apparently this Ascian who first appeared, and I don't know how this information, because I don't remember this coming across in the thing. I had to do research on this guy. He was the crazy-looking bearded emperor of the Garlean Empire in Final Fantasy 14 1.0.
Yeah, he's...
And this is like his preferred look, is the look he has in this other world. He's the grandfather of Varus and the great-grandfather of Xenos, who we'll also get to in a second. So Final Fantasy 14 bad guys are basically a family affair. They all go through the...
Yeah, it's
the
one
whole thing.
line.
Yeah, we're dealing with great-grandpa right now in this one. So anyway, Emmett Selk apparently followed Nuborius into this other world and shows his new form. And what he wants is for balance to be restored to the world as well. So he supports the hero up until the hero is no longer able to retain the light. And now Emmett Selk, he's decided he wants to sacrifice all the lesser races to restore the simulation of his lost civilization called Amarat, which I also titled Xanarkand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar to Final Fantasy X here as well. You've got a city that was destroyed in ancient times. It got flooded. I'm not really sure what the lore is behind why it got flooded, but it's been a long, long, long time. And these people were immortal. It's basically the elves from Lord of the Rings. Like, they can be killed, but they're immortal in the sense that they will not die of old age.
Yeah.
And he creates this massive simulation that kind of recreates this old town that he
Even
had.
then, there's some soul popping in and out his body somehow.
Yeah, there's that, and then it's weird. There's like one guy who kind of carried over, who's sort of alive in the simulation in a way, which is really weird. And that kind of like fucks with him later on.
There is actually a point where you go into his like rebuild of his city, and there's just like robots there, and it's like a big empty city.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool, like design and cool part of the game. But yeah, it's basically Xanarkand. It's like
Yeah.
the Xanarkand Titus comes from, which is like a false Xanarkand in the mind of the faith.
Right.
It's it's a big fake city. And this guy's hoping to make it restore it as the real city.
Yeah, because honestly, they were pretty great people. It sounds like they were doing a lot of really good things. They just got fucked up by this like scourge thing.
So I guess in order to like restore the balance as he sees it, there needs to be like some new calamity, and it would kill the other ones. That's kind of what I'm gathering from this. That if it was clear in the Final Fantasy 14 cutscenes, I did not hear it. So I don't know. So like his motivation is a little bit like squishy to me, kind of like Minfilia 2's powers are like a little bit squishy to me, but there's something going on there. And he basically is going to kill a whole bunch of people in order to get his world back to where he wants it in this alternate reality universe, as opposed to the real one, which is where you guys all came from, the source. So you also find out a little bit more about the Exarch. He is actually from the future, and
he's a furry.
And he's there to defeat Emmett Selk. Since Emmett Selk's actions are going to bring about endless war, and he wants to take care of that, basically. So now, in the last part of the game, after the bad guy switch with Vothri, you're now going after Emmett Selk, right? And you go through big dungeon, which is great.
Before that, you go to the DMV.
He has like a big, huge speech. Wait, DMV? Sorry, what?
Yeah, that's the part where you go into the city and you have to like talk to the dude and you wait in line forever.
Oh, yeah.
You get the DMV because this is a huge bureaucracy. Then you go, awesome dungeon.
Great dungeon, great boss fight. Great cutscenes around there because he has like a really good like I'm the bad guy now cutscene, which is about where my interest returned to the story.
No.
When we review it, we'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, you are then able to defeat Emmett Selk. When you do, you're overtaken by the light once again. And you don't really have an out this time. But Arbert, the warrior of darkness, he then fuses his spirit. I don't know what's going on here, but he like fuses his spirit with the warrior of light, aka Naborius. And it protects him. It nullifies the light. It protects him from the ill effects of the light streaming into your hero, and this other world is saved. And Vothri's gone, Emmett Selk is gone, and now the Exarch can turn his attention on getting the Scions back to where they belong. Even though I think that's probably what the second half, like what the patches are going to be about.
Yeah,
it could be about
sure.
that. It could be about the Black Rose thing, which we haven't touched on. I'm not sure, but basically, like that's now where the story stands as far as your hero is concerned. What they still need to get the Scions back into their regular world, but the threat has been neutralized. The threat that was gonna destroy the world or whatever. So now all these rich people, they all don't know what to do. They're spreading the wealth with the poor people for now, and they're making like a democratic government. And China's is put in place as the mayor.
Yeah.
There's a character named China's. CHAI-NUZZ. China's, and then his wife, whose name I can't remember.
Yeah.
Interesting pairing.
There's also a town called Kalusia that I always just called Kalusia.
China's lives in Kalusia.
Yeah. There's no Kalusia.
So while this is happening, there are some cutscenes going on about things going on in the real world.
Yeah, the source.
Yeah, the Gaius, I think he's a witness to this, who's voiced by Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Guy. In the real world, what's witnessed is that Xenos' spirit the real Xenos has entered the body of Xenos, and whatever thing was in his body before, which it might have been in a previous expansion. I just don't remember.
Okay, so there was a guy. So Xenos somehow, I don't know what the fuck, how he did this, other than like the will to live. He kind of like went inside of another soldier's body. So you remember how there was that weird Imperial guy who was just saying shit? Okay, that was Xenos' spirit entered that guy's body, which, I mean, I know sounds like bullshit because it is. And then he re-entered Xenos. He entered his old body after the...
He's like an agent from The Matrix.
Yeah, what's that guy's name? The guy who I said sounds like a sex act. The other Asian that's left.
I don't know.
Shit. That guy was inside of Xenos' body. Because remember
that's who I'm confused about. No, I don't remember what happened at the beginning.
He got brought back when he got brought back from the dead. He wasn't actually brought back from the dead. It was an Asian puppeting his body around to
create conflict and opportunity for the Asians. Because remember,
Okay.
the last chunk of patches, he was somehow not dead suddenly, and that was because he was being inhabited by that guy.
Okay.
And
So Xenos gets back into his body, and when he does, he kills his father and takes over the throne, all while they're seeking out something called the Black Rose, which is like some sort of super weapon.
it's Elibidus. That's what it is. Yeah.
It's some sort of super weapon that they're going to be able to take over the world, I assume.
I
But
think that's when you just play with the balls. It's Elidibus.
I believe you. So anyway,
Awesome.
that's my overview of the story. It's probably not perfect because I got some things to say about how this fucking thing goes. Anything you want to add?
I got a little bit on the notes here. There was a weird Viera age scene that came straight out of Final Fantasy XII. So one of the worlds that you inhabit, there's a bunch of Viera bunny women, which is sweet.
Nice.
They can't decide on an accent for these women, of course.
No, why do you say that?
But there's a scene in there where they recreate the FF12 scene with Fran, where like, one of the guys asks, "Wait, how old are you?" And it's like the exact same scene. I thought that was kind of fun. We had that. We had a weird, the weird fucking song playing in that area too. We'll get into that for music. Yeah. There's a part where you have to reactivate this mine cart, and when you're building the golems, you're bringing life back to the machines that kind of do the work of these miners. Miners, MINERS, of course. And there's a scene, a plot line in there that I thought was actually really good. It's the Magnus guy. So this guy is a drunkard, like kind of the village drunk in this area where it's a big mining town that's kind of died because they've lost their ability to mine effectively because their machines have died. And I really liked this subplot because he's kind of against getting everything working again because his wife died in a cave-in trying to find a heart for a golem. It's like some kind of gem, some kind of a thing from ether that like comes into being after a while or some shit. I don't exactly know how the fuck these things exist, but
Right.
they're, it's just carbon crushed into this thing that powers these fuckers. And she died in a cave-in when that happened, and then his son died of like an illness shortly after. So he's like super against trying to get the shit running again. And then you kind of blast your way in there and you find a little note that she left, basically saying that she had found it, and you end up using the heart that you find that she died for to kind of power the thing.
And that's when the music goes bling ding 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 ding.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean those are all in the middle areas where you go to the new area and you got to defeat the Light Warden in that area.
There's a lot of breaking the fourth wall, and what I mean by that is they acknowledge all the time. They mention that, hey, we shouldn't dawdle, but then they keep talking. That's something that drove me nuts. They're like, oh, we really need to hurry about this, but then everyone has one more thing to say. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
we
about?
started complaining about it the last 14 expansion we talked about, the Legend Returns or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Still have that same complaint.
Yeah, let me see what else I've got.
Hey, wake up.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, and Emmett Selk, one of the things he was holding out hope for mankind, and he basically acknowledges that we're a bunch of failures and we're pathetic and weak, and that's a big reason why he wants to kill us, because he wants us to be as great as his society once was, and we don't live up to his expectations, and that's when he says, you know what, I'm going to burn it all down, essentially. And Urian J, we find out, is directly like connected to the source. He's like an ancient one. It's really weird. It was also awkward. We had a derail partway through the story where we had to do these role quest things. Where I liked it though, because it was associated with a warrior of darkness that is part of your class. So Ardbert, his party of warriors. So like it's basically acknowledging that Warrior of Light has his party of people, so the people we play the game with when we jump into dungeons and jump into trials, that's like a party, right? And they had their own party back in the day, and we kind of we go back and we relive the story of our class, whoever was our class of character back in the day. You kind of relive their experience, and you go through and find out. And mine was pretty cool because it was this weird like tear in like the between worlds that you come across in the desert, and you hear like a little kid in there, and you actually shine a light through, and he follows the light, and he gets out of this weird portal realm thing. And then what ends up happening, this guy hires you basically to take on this sin eater that's this black mage guy from years and years and years ago. And it turns out that guy was the warrior of was Ardbird's buddy and one of his party members. And what happened was, when he and this kid who comes out of the portal, they were little kids. They were like playing around with these weird wormhole things that they ended up doing that like suck everything in and kind of destroy it, as far as they know. The black mage guy set one of those out, and it actually sucked up his best friend, this little kid, into the weird wormhole world. And he spent the rest of his life basically trying to find a way to get him out of there. And he ended up finding this this gemstone that was part of this mountain, but like there was something about like if he removed it, he was gonna like throw off the balance, and the mountain was gonna like basically be destroyed and cause some massive landslide and kill a bunch of villagers, a bunch of fucking dwarfs down the way. And so he ended up like giving up on his best friend to save all these other people. And then you eventually fight the dude. You fight this black mage guy, and the kid confronts him. You train the kid up, and then the kid and you fight this dude. And it's kind of, there's not really much of them left, you know what I mean? Because when they turn into the sin eaters, they're basically gone. But then like there's this, I don't know how it happened, but there was like this pre-recorded message thing. It was really dumb, but of him like saying that he never gave up looking for him.
A crystal or something.
Yeah. I think it was. No, it was a crystal thing. I'm pretty sure.
Of course it is. That's just what, like, when they find plot holes in Final Fantasy, or Final Fantasy 14 specifically, they're like, nah, crystal magic.
Yeah.
Weird things happen.
And his name's Nilebert. I thought that was pretty cool.
It's nihilistic Ardbert.
Yeah.
That was only all our class things were all separate.
Yep, it was based on whatever class you were. You
Yep.
could do all
And
the quests that you were leveled up to.
I skip-a-rooed that shit.
Well, it was actually more connected than I thought it was. Because you were playing as whatever character Warrior of Darkness that you represent as your class.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works with a white mage, but
they need heals too. Okay, dark, aethered
dark what?
people. I don't know, like
whoa,
dark magic.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really good subplot as well.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I can't tell you what happened in the White Mage one.
I thought
there was like a drunk dwarf, and I had to keep on going back and forth.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked it a lot when Emmett Selk basically did his huge reveal, and he walked into his final dungeon area, and he just walks through the fire. That was pretty fucking sweet.
Bad guy through the flames, cliche.
And the music is pretty good in that part. They do that song all the time, so it kind of cheapens it a little bit. And then honestly, it's a huge yin and yang kind of balance story, obviously, because you've got you, traditionally warrior of light, coming into this world overburdened by the light, and you have to suppress it and bring balance back. And the only way you can do that in the end is by fusing with your version, the version of yourself that resides in this world as the warrior of darkness, and then you become just warrior, I guess. I don't know.
You're the warrior of darkness. In this world, you're the warrior of darkness.
What is warrior squared? It's something.
I made the joke. It was warrior of 18% gray.
Yeah.
Which is the neutral exposure card you put up for photography.
There you go. I don't identify as
the warrior of
dark.
18% gray.
Yeah. So all of that shit happens. You fight Emmett Selk, obviously. It all balances out. And then we go back to our world. Our world, where we see a super Game of Thrones moment where the king is being stabbed by his son.
Yeah.
And Gaius comes into the room, who, of course, was the original bad guy of 2.0. And he's very upset about that because he knows firsthand how it feels to be stabbed by your own son, because this guy's voiced by Roose Bolton. So he's real pissed off about what he's seeing right now. And he basically goes up to fight him. That's when we learned that Xenos was reunited with his body. Elibidus has fled. And you come back. And it's weird because Elidibus, we have this scene of Elidibus on the moon. He's the last... I think he's the last one
I didn't know what
left.
the fuck was happening there, but yeah.
That was one of those scenes where they put in where it's like, I don't know what kind of mastermind just sits there and talks about what they're gonna do, but
I'm on the moon, motherfucker.
yeah, when you're on the moon, you do whatever you want, I guess.
There's one time I would, I was like, I hiked to the top of a thing, like top of a mountain. And I just like jerked off, just on the top of the mountain.
I would do that on the moon too.
That's right. No one's there.
Can you imagine
fuck it.
Can you imagine like the International Space Station if like a dude was alone up there for 9 months? There's just like pockets of cum.
There's cameras. Though. There's got to be like the one room that's not full of cameras, but he's like. Yeah.
You open it up and there's just like little floaties everywhere in the room.
I tried to clean it up, man, but
it's just impossible.
Sorry, bruh.
It's so hard.
I can't chase it around the space station all day. I got things to do.
Yeah. And when like it's like turns into this weird prism crystal thing, when it hits the light, just a little rainbow comes out. It's so beautiful. How could you clean that up?
This is the most disgusting joke we've had on the show in a while, I think.
So Elidibus is going to send warriors of light after you. And Thancred and what is it, Ren, head out into the waste. And then basically Roose Bolton, Gaius, I called it's Gaius Van Belsar. I called him Gaius Van Bolton. Mm-hmm. He goes to fight. He goes to take on with the Xenos, and like as they clash, the thing basically ends. Which I was interested in that storyline honestly before, because it had like the whole Black Rose, the chemical warfare thing, and they're like uncovering the plot and uncovering ways to stop it. And then this entire expansion just like rips all that away, which I thought was really interesting. You fall into this weird world. You come across your companions who are like in this weird deep sleep, and then you realize that, and then you fall into it because the Crystal Exarch summons you into his world. He tries to follow you back to your world at the end, and he realizes that he can't, and he like really regrets that because he wants to go to the true reality kind of a thing. He wants to go to the source, but he's not allowed. But he teleports you back, and you're back in your home world.
So, I have some thoughts. I mean, the first thing is that's pretty cool about this thing is that they actually took our, I guess, complaint before, which is like, you're always playing the Warrior of Darkness, or you're always playing the Warrior, because the thing, they bring it up like once, maybe twice in the series where it's like, once upon a time, the world was, it was in Final Fantasy 3.
Yes.
Like 3 proper. That one had Warrior of Darknesses once in the past, when the world was too filled with light and they had to bring balance to it, and now you're the Warrior of Light bringing balance in the other way. So there was a point in this podcast where it was like, we never play as the Warrior of Darkness bringing...
Yeah, it's very clear.
Bringing darkness to the world.
The Square Enix takes what we say very seriously.
It's true.
Which is great, maybe they'll get 16 to us before 2024.
So that was the story of Shadowbringers.
Yeah, it was exactly what we had asked for years ago. Yeah.
So that was cool. And I think the story of Shadowbringers, when you like write it down and you have everything there, like there's a lot of really cool shit going on in Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
But my feeling is, and it's the same with the previous patch expansion of The Legend Returns, is that it's far too long-winded. And so even though the story on a superficial level is cool, experiencing the story from my point of view, when I'm playing through and just like fighting a little thing and then watching 20 cutscenes in a row that have no sense of urgency, which is the phrase you brought up yesterday, that makes the story really hard to digest.
Yeah.
When you were talking about, we need to hurry along, like that's every other cutscene. They fucking say that at the end of it, and then there's 3 more lines of dialogue, or there's a nod, or something like that. I honestly think like the overall plot stories so far for these things have been pretty cool. Like even I remember the 2.55 content of Realm Reborn, where they were having like the refugees coming in, and there's a war, and you're dealing with the princess, and she's like, someone tries to kill her or whatever. That stuff is all like pretty good, meaty story stuff. And sometimes it works. Sometimes there's a good cutscene in there. But most of the time with Final Fantasy XIV storytelling, they're taking the long road for everything. And it's making cutscenes that should be like 3 lines. When I'm thinking from like screenwriter perspective, I'm like, get through this shit, because there's no substance here in a lot of these cutscenes. The reason why the bad guy being big bad guy cutscenes are the best cutscenes is because something is happening, and it's happening in the cutscene.
No.
And there's some sort of conflict happening, and so you're there, you're interested, you're intrigued in what's happening and what's going to happen next. But there's so much like, let me remind you about something, something, something. Let me exposition this something, something, something. And the trick with exposition, as I know, is to deliver it while there's other conflict going on, and deliver it in a very like underhanded way where you don't realize exposition is happening. Or if there is exposition that has to happen with a spoken line, get it through real fucking quick. Don't give that line to Urianger.
Yeah.
Like, who's the worst character to read or hear his words spoken in a cutscene just because of the way he speaks. It's just so plotty, with a D, plotty, and it's just not. Even though there's a cool like overarching story going on there, the actual execution of the story, outside of like the dungeons and the actual gameplay and like a couple cutscenes here and there, I think it is totally a failure of Final Fantasy XIV, and it seems like they're getting worse and worse. I could just be getting more and more annoyed by it, but I don't know. Someone can like put all the cutscenes together and find out how long each expansion has been in terms of like video footage, and we'll see if like, because I mean, this is a pretty complicated story, but it could have been told in 10 hours.
Yeah.
Honestly,
It's always been, this game has always been a little bit too long, and the difference between the expansions has been the story is actually better. So 2.0, the story I think is kind of shitty. I don't really care about it as much, and each expansion for me that we've gone along, they're all really long, and they're all really long-winded in that MMO kind of way. But the stories do get stronger overall, and I think personally, I think this is the strongest one so far. I really liked the bad guy. I really liked both bad guys. I thought it was very interesting what they did. I thought it was cool what they did with like connecting the Crystal Tower there, in their world with our world's Crystal Tower. I thought all of that was really interesting. There's a lot of like knots being tied on little stories that we got in the past.
that we've definitely forgotten over the last 5 years. Maybe you remember it.
I remember a little bit of the Crystal Tower stuff in our world. But, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it is a complicated story, but it's not interesting enough that I care enough to learn, to remember everything about it.
They dig into lore so much in these cutscenes, too.
Yeah.
It's like lore should be something as like a player you dig into yourself. Like you go do extra shit to learn about things that aren't necessary to the plot.
Yeah.
But that like give color to the world if you're like a fan of it. I love that stuff when I'm a fan of something. Like I love learning about like shit for Lord of the Rings and stuff. But there's a fucking appendices. It's separate. Like the actual like main narrative is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about 14 that they just maybe it is just because it's an MMO and they want to drag it out.
I think the writers need to be fired, not the English language translators, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And the writer who's making the overall plot thing, which I'm sure is like the director or something, it's someone big head honcho. Keep that guy. He's been making cool stuff. He's been having cool ideas. The actual writers of the individual cutscenes, they need to learn the trick that every writer has been told since the beginning of time, which is in late, out early.
Yeah.
We don't need to see all the characters leave to know that all the characters left. We don't need to have a moment where, oh, what are you doing, New Boreas? Well, I'm doing this. You can just have a scene take place with all the meaty, dramatic action, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And you can move the fuck on. And with the text boxes, like half the text box is all that needs to be read. Honestly. It's just wake up, Schweiss. Jesus Christ. I always have to put that alarm off every time you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And it's the same complaints I had last time, so I'm not gonna go super into it, but I feel the same way about this one. Even though the plot is cool and I followed it more than I did on the last expansion, which I almost forgot completely, by the way. It's still like some of the, especially in the middle section, like my interest was pulled at the beginning because of the cool, intriguing world, because I was learning things and it was cool, it was different. And then it just did that same thing 4 times over and over again with the light ward and shit. And then finally, when like we're going to go to get rid of Vothri, story picks back up again. Because more things are happening in the very long cutscenes, so I was more interested than I was.
Yeah, it is. I think this is probably the best expansion story-wise for sure. But again, you're right. It has the same MMO problems that it's always had, where it's just way too long. There's way too many little side steps.
I feel like FF11's cutscenes weren't this long.
No, I think 11 did a better job of balancing.
There was one expansion where I felt like the cutscenes were too much. Like there wasn't enough game. It was Treasures of Ottergon.
Yeah, that's because the Treasures of Ottergon was basically destroyed by the time we got there.
Yeah, there was no gameplay left.
We didn't really have to do anything, yeah.
So we just like ran through cutscenes. That was problematic. But we're running through the game like a normal person would this time around. We've been doing like dungeons and shit, and you've been crafting, and the story is still fucking unbearably slow.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because it's the highest rated Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy 12.
That's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Maybe 4 in MMO, it can be rated that high, but
if
you're comparing it to other Final Fantasies, the single-player Final Fantasies, no. And I saw a YouTube video thumbnail. I didn't click on it. It was like, Shadowbringers, the best Final Fantasy in years. And I'm like, no! Did you get my COVID on you when I spat?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of 15, but I don't know. It's probably better than Shadowbringers.
I think it's execution. People complain about it being botched. That's only because they know it was botched, I think.
Yeah. In Shadowbringers, I mean,
Shadowbringers is...
It's just too long. It's
Final
too
Fantasy
much fluff.
15 has... It's straightforward. Its cutscenes don't fucking waste time.
Yeah.
In fact, they need like 3 more cutscenes, I think was my complaint when we originally reviewed the game. They needed more cutscenes in 15. This one I do not have that same complaint of. It's fucking cut half this shit out. God damn it. You can keep all the details of the story that was said today when we were talking about the individual like pieces. And by the way, you wouldn't have to cut any of that. You wouldn't have to cut any of the story. Just cut like half the fucking lines. Good God.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's honestly too much. But
more gameplay, less cutscenes.
Yeah, that's weird. It's almost like there's
for this MMO, like we're here online with other people going to play stuff and like.
Yeah, and there's plenty of content to be played. But I don't know. We did all the dungeons that are unlocked so far, except for the stuff in the patches, because we're not going to touch that until the next expansion's about to come out. But we did the 2 extra dungeons after the 2 post-game dungeons in this area. We did all
which are fantastic.
Trials. Yeah, they were great.
So we can go into gameplay if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Gameplay, The dungeons in this game, they're getting real creative visually. I love them. They're always fun. The best thing about this game is the dungeons. Trials are great too, but the best is the dungeons. Some of the more advanced players have been telling us to do raids, which we're behind in. We'll start catching up on that next time we go into the game. But yeah, that's the best part of the game is the dungeon design and like all these crazy little boss fights you get into and like the new mechanics on the AoEs and like my jobs mechanics have changed completely. Like the white mage's mechanics are now like team heals as opposed to individual heals. It's really like stressed that about, although I played about half the expansion without fucking around with my new spells or anything like that. So I was playing like like Stormblood White Mage when I should have been playing like Shadowbringers White Mage, and that probably caused some problems. But yeah, the kind of like the new, it's a more efficient battle system now. I think I have a lot less like things I have to do, but just like a couple things I need to really focus on, which is good because the bosses and everything, and even like the individual like little creatures as you're going through and fighting stuff, they've all become like more complex. They've gone another step of complexity. I think they're just doing this every expansion. Basically, you play the Realm Reborn stuff and it's really simple. These fights are super simple. There's like some AoEs, but they're, they show you what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But basically the extreme fights from the original game, or from the original expansion of the game, those are now kind of like what the normal fights are. Like they're crazy. Like there's things having to do with the maps, and you got to collect weird orbs just in time for him to do like some sliceroo thing, and then like the AoEs that you see are like they're getting like crazier, and it's just a more fun experience. It's getting better and better on the gameplay side of things. It's getting better and better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the dungeons we had in this expansion were really fun. I liked the trials. I liked the dungeon design, especially that last Amarat, the city of Amarat
The
dungeon.
one we had to do twice.
Yeah. That one was really cool. There was a lot of good stuff in there. One of the things that disappointed me about the gameplay, though, I didn't really have...
I'm thinking of a different one.
I didn't have, like, Black Mage quests. Like, we had the weird little, like, sort of Black Mage quests, but, like, I kind of missed...
fighting, like, normal guys on the map.
Yeah, the expansion acknowledges that, hey, look, like... It's weird. They've kind of streamlined a lot of things with the gameplay, so you don't have to go do these job class missions anymore to get abilities unlocked. They just kind of give you the abilities when you reach certain levels.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they also do that with the loot in the game. As you're doing the main story, they just give you a fucking box. When you open up the box, it's like, all right, here's your class item, the best item right now for you in the story.
They took some of the I got to catch up with my friends challenge away.
Yeah.
Which I didn't like anyway, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, they streamlined a lot of stuff for this expansion. I do like the gameplay
so that you
changes.
could spend more time watching cutscenes.
Yeah.
That's why.
My rotation changed for Black Mage, and I actually was really bad for a while with the group AoE stuff until I got that down. Because I was mostly a single target guy, and then we had somebody keeping track of the DPS.
I think it was Bonsack. Am I right about that? Or Explicit Baron.
One of those guys.
One of those guys.
They were watching the DPS, and mine was like garbage. And it's because it was a group of dudes, and I was only doing a single attack.
Yeah, I could beat him out sometimes.
Yeah, so I had to go through and
It's a white
revamp.
mage.
I had to go through and revamp my AOE, and now it's like crazy high. But there was a lot of stuff I had to learn, even after watching a good chunk of videos on what the rotation is. Because the hard thing is you'll get these like, Stormblood or Shadowbringers level 80 rotation.
I could not find a decent video on White Mage.
And I don't get the level 80 ability until level 80. So like that part of it I have to cut out, and then some other stuff I have to cut out because it associates
all
with
these
that.
people who play 14 all the time forget what it's like for that brief moment when the expansion just comes out. And like they're building up to it, they're rushing through cutscenes like we are.
Yeah.
I mean that's got to be what you're doing because you're trying to get to the next content, So
yeah. We didn't do the raid. in this expansion, the Near Automata thing. We are catching up on the older content, and we did a lot the last day, especially.
Yeah.
As far as like the extreme fights of old. And I mean, I know they're not the extreme fights that they were at the time, but here's the thing, guys. I don't give a shit. I don't want to play those extreme fights at the time because this isn't the only game I want to play. I don't enjoy the game enough to make it the game I play and bust my, balls over this fucking fight over and over and over and over and over and over and over again to get a slight increase in armor. I'm really not interested in that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I mean, if this was your game, like if you lived for 14, it's a really fun game. When it's a game, it's a really fun game. Which it is to the people who play this all the time.
Right, yeah. We kind of...
That cutscene rush happens as often as we do the cutscene rush.
Right. And it's honestly, the way we review the MMOs is really weird. But frankly, I don't give a fuck. Like, all we're here is to talk about.
I do think
the story and the gameplay that we experienced and the changes with the gameplay.
Yes, I do think that there were some instances in the story where it became a single player instance. So like there was like some little challenge you had to do basically, or a boss to fight, and you were just single player. They've had these throughout the expansion. There was a lot in this one, and I had a thought about halfway through. I was like, these could be 2-player.
Yeah. Just have like a 2-player raid or a 3-player raid or something like that. Also, I will say this expansion's way easier playing as Thancred, someone who doesn't have to cast spells. Like getting out of AoEs is a cakewalk when you don't have like a 4-second fire 4 building up forever and ever and ever.
That's right.
And
or a raise.
Yeah. It's like they take forever for some of these spells. It's really to fuck over the mages. Although the Black Mage is one of the highest damage. I think it is the highest damage output class, so they do fuck it up a little bit. But I as far as the gameplay goes, I liked the changes. I liked the little polyglot bar in the corner that you build up and you get this massive attack. I had a pretty good rotation down by the end of the game, I feel, when it comes to especially the single target stuff. The AoE stuff, it takes a little longer to build, but I had a lot of stuff down, and we were dealing some pretty heavy damage. And I liked the changes. I think every time they change the gameplay, it takes a while to get used to, especially because we're not all the way up to snuff on that content. So we're usually a little bit underleveled. This time we weren't underleveled because of the way we approached it. Yeah. Because we did all the stuff between Stormblood and Shadowbringers.
I did find out when you fill up your armory that when you press the recommended gear button on your character, it doesn't pull stuff from your regular inventory.
Yeah.
Found that out, and suddenly my character was able to do a lot more healing stuff. In fact, I don't want to brag or anything, but on the last optional dungeon we did in the final boss fight, which is a pretty difficult fight. In fact, we had a team. So the person who was playing with us the most on this expansion was Dr. Roxo, who he's helped with us on this game before. He was basically on every time we wanted to come on. He just hopped on. It was cool. He works nights, so I guess it works for his schedule. And we had Krinital the last couple of days. He finally hopped on. Who else helped us?
We had Emily.
Emily helped us a lot. We had a couple of guys come in. I think it was Bonsack, whatever his title is on PlayStation Network. It was one of the guys we had a recent episode with. Hopped on. Yeah, I think it was Bonsack. I could be wrong. Sorry, person. If it wasn't Bonsack.
Well, it's hard because they have different names on different things.
But thank you to those who helped out. But anyway, this was our team. It was me, you.
Oh no,
Krinital.
It was Aldwin. That's what it was.
Aldwin. Okay, thank you, Aldwin. Me, you, Krinital, and Dr. Roxo. And Krinital's the tank. You and Dr. Roxo are the DPS. I'm the healer, right? Now, what happened was we wiped the first time. Schweiss and I both died, and we were taken out of the map. And when I die, there's no more raises left. So I just give up. I go back to the beginning of the map.
Yeah.
And so Krinital and Dr. Roxo try to take this thing on themselves, and they aren't able to do it. The DPS and the tank, they weren't able to kill this guy. It was about half health. They got him to about 1/3 of the way, maybe a quarter of the way left on his health bar. Not able to do it. The next time we go into the game, this is what happens. We're fighting this boss. Crinitol disconnects.
Yeah.
His internet goes to shit, and he's gone. But we're still doing some pretty good damage. We're going for it, right? The next thing that happens, unfortunately, just because we weren't able to take the damage, Schweiss dies. I try to raise him. While I'm trying to raise him, Dr. Roxo dies. And then Dr. Roxo says, just call it. And so you and Dr. Roxo decide not to wait for my raise to see if we could take this guy on without Crinitol, all while Crinitol is trying to reconnect to the fucking game. Crinitol does reconnect to the fucking game.
Yeah, after we both left the fucking fight.
That's right. And when Crinitol reconnects to the game, he pops back in while I'm soloing the fucking boss as a white mage for like 10 seconds, okay? Because I try it. Like, he said to wipe, and it's like, well, I can stand there, or I can try to heal myself and see what I can do. So I'm fighting the boss by myself for about 10 seconds. Crinitol comes in. Now it's the tank white mage duo. He's at over half health.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a war of attrition, and a tank and a healer soloed that motherfucking boss with no DPS.
Yeah, and it only took 40 minutes. It took for fucking ever.
I just want you to know.
Yeah, it sucks because we gave up because the tank, we were like, oh, he's going to die. Joe's going to die because there's no one in there to take the damage off of him. And, you know, a lot of it was kind of AoE stuff.
Me and Crin got real good. I mean, Crin was probably already good at it, but I got real good at dodging that shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I knew that boss inside and out. He had no more tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and Schweiss's mic was muted on the other side. I was hoping to hear, like, cheers and, like, wow, you really are a great white mage. I didn't hear any of that.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure Schweiss said it, but his microphone was not working right on the PlayStation Network.
I think I said nice and good job, guys. That's about it. So
It wasn't. I should reward you by sucking your dick next time you're
no,
over here recording.
I
Missed
remember
opportunity.
the last trial
You.
we had. There were 2 white mages in the room, and yeah, there was a lot of dying to be had in that last trial.
You know, Schweiss, I see Dr. Roxo as a DPS as well, and I just don't see him dying as much as
He
you.
has more health than me. 1 and 2, he did have better items. His
He
items
also
are level 500.
tries to dodge AoE sometimes. Just tries to.
Yeah, I just have faith
Sometimes
in the...
I can't heal the entire team when I already just raised someone and someone else dies because
Yeah,
I don't have the instant cast once I use it
Here's
for a little
one
while. I'm
tip.
just saying, you got a 2-minute cooldown on that shit.
You got to remember that you're casting the spell Raise, not the spell Arise. So when I come up, if I don't get healed, I'm going to die again.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I'm casting a heal on you and you just jump off the map because you feel like it. I don't know why the fuck you. Sometimes in a big, huge, painful fight that's happening in possibly the second to last or last dungeon, I can't remember. There's a maybe you can't jump off, you can't go off to the side too far or else you'll fall off the map. And maybe you're a shitty DPS who dies 3 times in a fucking row, and I have to keep on stopping to raise you.
Well, look.
While there's other fucking face AoEs with lasers going all over the place that I have to pay attention to while I'm trying to fucking raise you, and then I raise you, and you commit suicide right after I raise you. Guess what? If you fall off the fucking map, Raise can't do shit.
Yeah.
You're gone. You're out of there.
No, I come back.
It's a permanent gone.
You fall back in the middle of the area.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't.
You do.
Otherwise, I would have gotten you up twice. You were gone.
No, we wiped because we all died. Here's what happened, though.
Wipe.
The first time I died because you didn't heal me, and then the second time I died because you raised me, and you didn't fucking heal me. You can't just leave someone at 20% health after you raise them. You gotta heal.
I have to dodge the same AoEs as you. If you
It's not a fucking AoE. It's a basic attack. It's
I'm
undodgeable.
seeing it. Everybody else is dodging the AoEs.
No, they're
but
not.
You. Everybody's dodging the AoEs but you.
The one you're talking
always-
about is a pulse attack.
attack that he
You
does
are
that is
always-
undodgeable
You
that
are
killed me
always
immediately.
the first to die.
That's because I'm the weakest character every time.
It's because you love AoEs.
No.
You love them. You're like, let's challenge Joe's ability. Let's do it. I want to make this hard mode for Joe no matter what.
In that fight, the second death I had was because he does an unavoidable just burst attack. It's not the AoE. It's a straight up just pulse that flies out, and if you don't get any fucking heals, you die. And the third time what happened is I accidentally pressed L1 to auto walk, and I walked off the edge. That time was my fault.
Why were you auto walking?
I don't know, man. I've become so used to walking long distances in this world that whenever I start walking,
You just press.
I just press the button, and then I keep going.
Well,
So that one is my
I could have
fault.
raised you for a fourth time.
You
Maybe-
could have,
Maybe
yeah,
there
yeah.
might have been enough time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's God, it's not a fucking AoE. It's just it's like
I don't
just
know,
it's
man.
just damage. And when you raise me and you don't cure me,
I'm gonna have to ask Dr. Roxo and
I
Pinnacle
die.
whether or not, like, the second half of the expansion, who was the problem child in this?
I
in
did
this
have some
family
I did
here?
have some hard times dodging some of the AoEs, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But
gameplay is pretty fun.
it is a lot of
Pretty
fun.
fun.
They've made it harder and harder for mages to exist, which is, there's spells. I have spells to counter that kind of shit. So I was doing a lot of that. I've got like a triple cast move that gives me 3 casts, and I think it's about every second I get a cast. And I did that a bunch. We would have a huge AoE, and I would just slam that down and kind of get out of the way of the AoE because I was in the middle of casting a spell, and then I'll cast that spell for free, cast it again for free, and cast it a third time for free. The hard thing about being a mage, though, is you have a certain rotation that you need to have down for a black mage to kind of keep the damage going, keep the damage output as high as possible. And when that gets disrupted, I'm not always. I got a lot better at it near the end, but I'm not always exactly sure where I am in the rotation. And what has to happen is I have to basically go in. And my rotation right now is I do a swift cast and I do Blizzard 3. And so I hit with the mana regen thing. And what this does, it gives you more mana regen to be in ice mode, basically, for a mage. And then I'm in ice mode, and then I cast my Enotion spell, which is an increase of spell damage and potency. And then I do Blizzard 4, which is that huge ice chunk that falls down. And then I can do Fire 3 because it swaps me then to the extra damage output, and then I can start doing Fire 4s. And the reason why you got to go Blizzard first, and I throw out a Thunder 4 in there before I go to the Fire because I've got that mana regen. And the reason why you go to Blizzard first and then to Fire is because your mana regen is actually, or your mana cost is super reduced. And so I can cast 3 Fire 4s, and then you have to keep the Fire proc on you, so like the little swirly around me, by doing a Fire 1, and then I go back to doing Fire 4s. And it's hard because I have to do the 3 and then I have to do the 1, or I'll lose it. And when you lose it, you can't go. The Enotion cooldown is longer than you'll lose it for. So if I fuck it up because I'm running away from too many AoEs and I forgot where I was exactly with the rotation, I'll lose my Enotion, the extra damage, and I won't be able to do Fire 4 or Blizzard 4.
That's interesting.
And it has I think it's like a 45 or a 60-second cooldown. And in the last expansion, it was really easy because I would go Blizzard and then do Blizzard 4 until my mana came back, and then I go Fire and then do Fire 4, and I was just kind of rotating between the 4s. And now there's a bunch of other moves that come in. And then I get this weird single attack thing that does it costs no MP that I do. And then I have another one that's called Despair that takes every ounce of my MP that's left. And so usually what I'll do if I do a perfect rotation, I'll finish off all of my mana. And then I'll cast Despair, and I'll have 1,100 left, which isn't enough to cast it. And then it'll wipe all of that. I'll have none, and then I'll get my free cast that doesn't cost any mana that does a ton of damage. And that's the thing in my
That's an
corner.
interesting
I don't know if you have this, but for me, it's called the polyglots. It's this weird thing that builds up over time when you're dealing damage, and it has this little meter on the side. And then when you run out, when the meter finishes filling up, then it procs this attack that doesn't cost any mana, and it does some serious damage.
No, what I have is on the Shadowbringers expansion, particularly of the new spells. you use enough cure spells and it like opens up this other cure spell. I forget the name of these spells. I just see the picture in my little like hotbar thing and I know what it is.
Yeah.
And then I use that cure, and that cure builds up. You use it so many times. I don't know if it's so many times. I haven't figured it out, or if it's like a certain amount of healing. But it like there's this like rose bush thing, and it like pops these flowers up. And once you have all those flowers filled up, then you get this special attack that I can use on the enemies, and it does a shitload of damage. I don't know if anybody has noticed that like every once in a while I just suddenly chunk the boss, and it's like this Atlas mastery or misery or something like that. There's a weird name to it. I don't know what it is. It's the red rose button, and that'll do a ton of damage to one guy, and then the guys around him will also get a big amount of damage too.
Yeah,
it's a pretty sweet attack.
That's kind of what I have too. But
and then I have on top of that, I have my like regular. I have like one big spell that does a okay amount of damage, maybe like 2/3 of what the black mage does, and then I have like Dia, which does just like little damage over time.
Well, how much damage were you doing? Like,
I never looked. It was I could always see it visually on the boss. It would just be like a good chunk. It would just like hit that, and I was doing more damage than anybody else at that moment.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty fucking cool new system, and I wasn't really using it until halfway through Shadowbringers.
I also have the little symbols on the ground that I cast that increases the spell speed, and I throw that in whenever I can.
Yeah.
Usually it's when I think I'm in a safe spot, because the only way to really use it effectively is to have an area where you're going to be casting a lot from that particular zone. So I mean that's basically my rotation, and I got it down pretty well. It's just hard because there's so many AoE things in this game. This expansion especially, and there's ones that you actually have to watch the game itself, like you have to watch the boss where he's going to come down, because before it was pure telegraph, right? You would have the little lines on the floor and it would tell you exactly where it was, and there were a few instances in this expansion where you just had to actually watch the boss.
It was pretty much every fight had something.
There was something in it, like the faces in the last one, or which fucked us up hard, which is the stupidest way to figure it out, is like you just stand like kind of next to both, and then you just move a little bit. When you see it's going to be this one, then you move back.
Yeah, you just happily take a little bit of damage.
Yeah, or I don't know. Yeah.
But then there was the front laser beam from that boss that was...
You can't see shit, yeah.
It has nothing to do with... You get like a half a second to start moving out of the way, but the beam goes where most of the people are. And we figured that out. Dr. Roxo kind of figured it out, and like I noticed it actually happening. We thought we would be able to move out of the way, but you can't really move out of the way. It's just like right before he's about to do that move, because there's a boss rotation. It's like everybody spread out. Someone's gonna get hit.
Yeah, and it was weird because it was reminiscent of Vagrant's story as far as like the map itself and being able to see
like
it.
The star map.
Like it's too crowded on there to actually see things effectively.
That boss is difficult.
It was rough. Yeah,
it's a difficult boss.
There's not very much space to run either. You know, there's a few times where I was like on the edge, just like fucking inches away from death and inches away from mass damage. So there's a lot of changes they made to this, and they've made it more and more actiony as it's gone along. Which is more and more difficult as a black mage. Obviously, the game is obviously systemically racist against black mages. Clearly,
sure.
Because when I played as Thancred, I'll tell you what, I had a way easier time.
Yeah, we all did. We all had a great, easy time as Thancred. I think that's most of my thoughts on gameplay. It's still great and slightly better than the last expansion.
Yeah, for sure. I like that we took the time to kind of catch up on some of the older stuff. I wish we would have done some of the raids, but honestly,
I wish like some of the leveling mattered, so that you had like, I don't know.
Yeah. I got into some more side stuff with the crafting, and we did a decent amount of stuff this time around.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Part of me wants to be that guy that keeps up on it, and like we do the raids when they're new.
Too many games.
Yeah, but there's a lot to do, and you know, the Nier Automata thing, like I really liked Nier Automata, but I don't really know if I care to have it in this game. I mean, I want to have like everyone have a super bubbly ass like 2B does, because it's awesome, but you know, it's not really to me. It's not as appealing. Like there's other ones in previous expansions that I like. We did a third of Alexander. I think we did all of the Coils of Bahamut. which are a joke now, unsynced. But yeah, that's where the disconnect really comes in for us versus some other podcasts out there. And some of the listeners even like Dr. Roxo used to spend all of his time on this game, grinding out the extremes and grinding out the the raids for all of the best equipment, doing like the most hardcore stuff. And I just don't care to do that. I really don't, because like you said earlier, if this was our game, if this was the game that we played,
if this was your League of Legends back when we played that for. I mean, I played it for about 1.5 years. You played it even longer than me.
Yeah, then we would do all of that stuff.
Yeah, you would, but I don't know. We're not that kind of gamer right now.
Yeah, and we do it later when it's really easy, and we just get the story and we get the content.
Hey, look,
and we get
man, what's the fucking point of leveling up like that and playing all this fucking time if you don't use that?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Like, the whole point of over-leveling in Final Fantasy is just be like, fuck you, boss.
Yeah, just destroy it. Yeah.
You're done. The music and the look of the game. I think we can both agree on the look of the game is probably it's great.
Yeah, it gets
Like-
more and more complex. I mean, like
Yeah.
my fucking scepter at the end is like this. It has this like weird Saturn ring, and then it's an orb floating inside of that Saturn ring. Like, honestly, the PS4 is probably just like, stop it. It's too much.
Hey, we'll be at PS5 soon. I wonder when they're gonna put 14 out for that thing.
I don't know. I imagine it'd have to be.
And then they'll just like stop service for PS4 soon after.
Yeah.
Like they did with the PS3.
The PS3 one was awful, though, from what I've seen.
Speaking of awful, the music. I'm just kidding. It's not bad. I don't think so, but I don't think it's as good as the last expansion. There's some Soken's getting real. I think it's Soken still.
Yeah.
Soken's getting real experimental. But also they're using the same damn music in every single like dungeon now, except for like a couple special ones, which I found kind of disappointing in terms of the music. Like I started to realize what the tracks were, and I was starting to get a little bit like annoyed by them.
Yeah, they did a lot. They reused really awesome tracks over and over and over again, like the Vothri one. The like evil, like menacing track that would happen. They used it. It's really good, but they used it a lot.
I guess the use of the music, it needed about twice as much music, I think. There are, and that's just kind of how I feel about the music overall. I mean, it's decent music, except for like the weird talking tracks, which he added in there, which I've never liked. Like I didn't like his like weird talk thing with the Leviathan fight back in 1.0. I just don't like that. I don't like the way it sounds. But in this one we had the yodeling area of the game, which everybody commented on when we were in the area. It's like, have you heard the music yet? Have you heard They would go into the PS4 chat like, have you heard the music yet?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm getting to it. Then you go out there, and you're going from like where everybody lives to like just outside, just into the wilds of this one area. And I already made fun of it earlier, but it goes, yeah, hey, ahoy, hey, yeah. I don't actually hate the song.
I don't either.
Bizarre.
It's pretty catchy, but
it's a bizarre mood, and it's really easy to make fun of. And mostly it sounds like Maya he, Maya ho, Maya ha, Maya ha ha.
Yeah, and it's weird because you'll have like this menacing track as you're doing the main story, and like, oh my god, we could all die, and then it's like, yeah. Somebody said the Cranberries in the chat at the time. Oh, they said it again. It's weird. Yeah, it's bizarre. And then the main theme.
Oh.
What's that zombie song?
What's in your hand? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not bad. I kind of like it.
I kind of do too. I hate it. I hate to admit it, but I was like, yeah, this song's ridiculous, but it's kind of good. It's kind of good. There was that, and then there was the like weird mumble rock main theme that they had in there, where it's like, it's pretty cool. Like it's a good track, I think, but it's like the guy is just talking a little bit too quietly.
The
really
weird
understand
whisper
what's going
track.
on.
I'm not into the whisper track thing. I love the rock thing, but he always adds like a whisper track to whatever. Like
they gotta fuck it up somehow. Like that's why I'm almost like, you know what? Fuck it. Distant Worlds might actually be the best vocal track they've ever had, because You know, as awesome as the 14 one is, the what is that track? The
Look,
yeah, that shit is
See.
so stupid. Like, why?
eyes,
Yeah,
look,
heart, pump,
beat.
blood. It's like, shut up. Like, why do you gotta be? Why do you gotta fuck it up? Like, they have to have something really, really nice, and then they just like, how can we make
Some
this
awkward English in
Yeah,
there
how
that
can we
just
make
doesn't
this
quite
awkward and
translate right?
stupid? And they
Yeah.
do it.
They do
And
it.
the Stormblood one, I actually just didn't like. I didn't think it was that great of a piece of music. I don't even remember what it sounds like, but every time I listen to it, I'm like,
Yeah, I felt like each of those songs has gotten a little bit less good as it goes along. I thought
yeah, this
the
one.
first couple were pretty good.
I think this one is better than the last one.
I didn't sit through the credits, so I don't remember it. Honest.
But I do think the area music is pretty decent. I liked the Amarat sounds. Like and Amarat is totally Xanarkand or Insomnia, right? It's very similar to the similar feel to the end of Final Fantasy.
There are
15.
also some areas that they recreated old themes. I could
Yeah.
hear them in there, and I couldn't quite place where they were from.
Like FF2, FF1. There was
Yeah.
I think there was the Crystal Tower theme or some FF3 in there from the airship.
Yeah,
The little do do do.
Just kinda like-
do 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 do.
kind of blended into the 14 music. There was some of that,
Yeah.
which was interesting.
14. Everyone talks about
It
9.
would make sense if you took the music from 3 because 3 is the closest story-wise to
easily.
Shadowbringers.
Yeah, this is the FF3 expansion. If you everyone talks about FF9 being the great callback. Like, this is way more of
Yeah,
a callback than
it is.
9 by like a mile. 9 is a callback to like a few of the games. This is a callback to every game.
There weren't that many of the games when 9 came out.
That's true. There's 5
fair.
more now,
Yeah,
6 more now.
there was
and the
The 9 games and like 2 spin-offs.
Yeah, now it's 50.
3 if you include Final Fantasy Legends, I guess. But
Yeah, now it's 1 million. But I like the soundtrack. There's the main themes. I don't know what the problem is. They just haven't hit the same high that they did with Answers. That's what the name of that song is. But again, like they always have to kind of fuck it up somehow. They always have to make it weird. So the main theme was cool. I really liked it at the very end in that cutscene where you like reunite with the Warrior of Darkness. That was pretty awesome. So they used it really well at times. But I do think they overused the weird bad guy theme, which is a really good theme. I like it a lot. But I feel like it's odd that they used it for both Vothri and Emet-Selch in the end. It seemed like we should have had something to kind of differentiate the two of those, because they're very different characters. I mean, one of them is certainly trapped in this world, and the other one can kind of go wherever he wants. And he's definitely more of a menace to society and to all of the worlds in this universe. So I don't know. I like the music though. I think Soken does a pretty good job overall,
Yeah.
and
he's gonna do 16, I think.
yeah. So I don't
That
know.
team, this team is making 16. I pray to God the fucking writers are not the writers on 16.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
But all right. So our rankings last time on and we can talk about our overall thoughts. Our rankings last time, my ranking last time, I listened to the Stormblood episode or the end of the Stormblood episode to get my old rankings back.
Did you get mine too?
But ours were the same on that episode.
Oh, okay.
So
I was gonna call
the
you a
last expansion, Legend Returns.
We differentiated.
But I mean, you said we do. I can't remember. I just know where I placed it last time. So my previous rankings were Stormblood, Dragon Song War, Realm Reborn 2.55 content, Heaven's Word, original Realm Reborn, The Legend Returns, and I forgot we ranked 1.0 cutscenes in there. 1.0 cutscenes is worse than Legend Returns for me. So that's my old ranking. I'm having issues on where to put Shadowbringers because I do think every single one of these expansions get better in gameplay. Even the patches, like they each get like, I don't know, there's something happening with that 14 team where they're just getting better and better at making the games. That's in terms of like dungeons and trials, they're all making them more interesting and all that shit. But story-wise, I'll be honest, I remember the 2.55 story content better than almost any of the rest of them. I'm like blanking out on what happened in most of these expansions. I remember what characters look like, but I'm honestly, I've just, my brain just turns off through half these cutscenes. I don't know if that's changed or not. I would have to listen to old 14 reviews to see if like I felt the same way back then. I do think the concept of Shadowbringers is pretty strong, and that will probably stick with me. So a part of me wants to put it on the top of my rankings. But I remember Realm Reborn 2.55 pretty good. I'm gonna put Shadowbringers on the top, but maybe I might have felt differently if I played all these in a row. And the gameplay makes it go to the top for sure.
Yeah, I think where our list differentiates, I do think the stuff between Stormblood and Shadowbringers, I really liked it actually.
Okay.
So I'm going to put that below Stormblood. So right now my list is Stormblood, Legend Returns, isn't that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then whatever the fuck I had.
Dragon Song War 2.55, Heaven's Word, A Realm Reborn, and 1.0 cutscenes.
But I'm going to put Shadowbringers at the top of this thing too.
Okay.
I think it has the strongest story so far. It still has a lot of the MMO bullshit that we're always going to get, I think, where it's just too long-winded, too much lore. They have a lot of strands that connect that are years and years apart from each other, which I think is kind of bad storytelling. I feel like it should be, and I think that's what they did with Stormblood or Shadowbringers really well, is they said, okay, this is in a different world. And the entirety of it pretty much was in that different world. And of course, we had the stuff that took place in the Legend Returns with the Black Rose and like this weapon of mass destruction or whatever on our normal planet. And then that kind of came back in at the end. I expected that to be the main theme of this game. And then, of course, they went completely off the rails with this Yulmore and this whole other world, which I thought was great. I really enjoyed that. And it kind of had its own self-contained story. You know what I mean? Where the Warrior of Darkness story sort of was hinted at and was touched on at the very end of the last one, and we all went into that coma at the very end of the last expansion to go to this world. So I feel like it teased it, and then it delivered, and now we're past it. So I think this is a very well contained story, and it's definitely the top of the list for me. As far as the gameplay, easily. As far as the story, easily. Emmett Selk was a really cool character. Vothri, I thought, was an interesting guy, too. Kind of lording over the Sin Eaters and had this weird dystopia, utopia society kind of thing going. I liked it. I think the stuff with Thancred and Minfilia is kind of getting old. It's weird. You mentioned this, and he always pats her head, and I've always been kind of like uncomfortable by that. Like, it just bothers me for some reason. But, you know, I feel like there were some really good side plots. I really liked the coming together with the Warrior of Darkness. This expansion, again, your character is becoming more and more verbal. It's like a deaf man learning to talk. It's weird because you used to not speak at all. Remember back in the day when you would just do the head nod or like the shrug or the gesture, and now we have like lines of dialogue that we're delivering.
Yeah. It just makes it so you can't just have the text auto go, and you have to be like, fuck. God.
You got to interact. Yeah.
I have to pick up my controller and press X.
Yeah.
It's a real pain in the ass.
I like Y'shtola getting hotter and hotter every single time. Never going to get old. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good expansion. I liked what I played. You know, I liked those extra dungeons. I had a good time.
So I'm reading the chat from the live feed right now, and first it was Krinital explaining the story further in the comments, which thanks Krinital. Not gonna read it. Thank you. I'm glad other people got some entertainment value out of that. I guess they didn't listen to me when I was talking about my raise thing. So Emily was right. When Emily popped into the thing and she was like, you shouldn't just be using cure, because that's what they're talking about, is how shitty I was as a white mage.
Yeah. I was shitty as a black mage for a while, too.
She was like, you shouldn't just be using cure. That's when I was starting to use the other stuff. So Emily, I'm sorry you missed, the more improved Joe. But also when I explained that sometimes I have to stop in order to raise you, it's because I had already used the swift cast to raise you. And now when the next guy goes down, I don't have the swift cast ready to go in order for the next raise
Well, the cooldown's not that long. See, that's the thing. We have the same ability, so I know the ability. I know it's cooldown.
It feels like a million
minute.
years when there's AoEs going on all around you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
And that happens a lot in these
you
boss
could
fights.
say that maybe if you use it, you might want to cure the guy you use it on so they don't die again.
Yeah.
I'm not a white mage though. I was fucking around with white mage 2 expansions ago, and they changed it. They changed it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
I mean, the first thing I did
and I was carried.
was when we started this game back up to do the last patches. That was me. I had to figure out how to do the custom hot bars, like the crazy version of it. That was a pain in the ass to do. It's like I was always like, you can't have that many buttons. You have to like switch through the menus. But actually, and it's worded horribly in the settings menus.
Yeah, we're talking play online level of horrors.
And to get those like extra hot bars on the side that you use, like you either press L1, L2, and then R2, or then R2 and then L2 to get those 2 hot bars to quickly switch onto your screen.
Yeah.
And then you can have further rotations from that. So basically you get, fuck, can't think right now. You get 8 abilities per like hotbar thing, and you can switch really quickly between them, as opposed to the other thing where you have 8 more hotbars that you have to switch through slowly. It's a much better system. I was trying to figure out. It took me for fucking ever to not only like to watch it on YouTube to figure out what people were putting down, but to figure out how to get those fucking hotbars to get on there in the way that they needed to get on there. It was awful. But that was like part of it. But I looked up someone's level 80 thing, like their like build for it, and I copied the exact same thing. So I had all my abilities already on those hotbars.
Yeah.
And stuff. So when I finally learned how to white mage a good chunk of the way into this expansion, I already had my stuff there. So thank God.
Yeah, we had some item level problems near the end too because of Joe's fucking.
Yeah, we already talked about that earlier.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about it, but what happens is if you have your character's like armory chest, which is all of your equipment, if that's full, then the items you select will go into your inventory, and those won't be automatically applied when you do equip recommended equipment.
So I was really close to the minimum level for these things.
Yeah.
And so
it made a big difference when you equip that shit, Lance. I'll say that.
Yeah, it seemed like it did.
Because we were getting hit for a lot, and it wasn't that.
I don't think me and Kryn could have soloed that boss without.
Yeah, and it's not
good equipment.
And when I was giving you shit about being a terrible white mage, it's not that you're not good at being a white mage. It's just your shit sucked. So like your heals would not heal enough, and when we have like pulsing attacks that aren't, it's not an AOE. It's just a straight up mass damage. Like it's hard, and even when it is the AOEs, we all fuck up sometimes, and it was rough. But we upgraded near the end. We finished it out. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and my skill set, the black mage, I have everything fit on those 2 bars. Just it's the base setup.
Oh,
I don't need
do not.
any more.
There's even more. There's like more like basic shit that's on other hotbars.
What I'll do though, I'll switch to another hotbar when it's AOE time. So like I'll just hit R1 twice, and then I'll go to the AOE hotbar, which is like honestly I only need like 12
it's
buttons.
That one that I don't like is the R1 like cycle through, where it cycles through in order.
Yeah.
I hate switching on that screen. I hate it. So having the hotbars where I can see them and they like get pulled into the main hotbar when you do a little button thing is way better. I saw other people using it. I was always jealous of the PC people because they have a million buttons.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have like I'm short like 2 buttons of difference now.
Yeah.
Thank God. Like it makes playing it on the PS4 way better, and I wish I knew how to do it before. Really don't know how to do it now, but it's already set up now, so fuck it. I never have to set up that goddamn hotbar system ever again. It took like 2 fucking hours.
Yeah.
On top of like a couple days of me going like trying to research the thing. So like the actual process of setting up the hotbar just right was 2 hours. Learning how to do it was,
I'm sure
over time a couple more hours.
I'm sure it would help me as well, because right now I have to hit R1 twice, and then I'm in my AOE.
I think when we started this thing, I was like, dude, you got to set this thing up.
Yeah, and then I was like, well, they've disabled half of my fucking ability list, so I kind of didn't need to. Was my big thing, but
all right.
Yeah.
That was Shadowbringers, guys.
Yeah, it was
stuff.
good. It was a good time. I don't know if I agree. It's the best FF in years.
No.
According to Metacritic.
No.
It's the best MMO
No.
expansion.
No,
for the,
not with the 7 remake.
Yeah.
Not with Final Fantasy 7 remake. I think 15 is better. I don't think 15 is perfect, guys. I don't know why like people just like hear things and then they rope things together and it all becomes like one mush. like me complaining about me not having enough time to raise. And you guys, I did say that detail. I can go back into this fucking recording and talk about, me using the Swiftcast first and then using raise, and they won't have heard it. It doesn't fucking matter what I say.
People just run away with
People
it.
just like hear one thing and it like clouds everything else and it just like thumps.
Yeah. No.
Just because I think 15 is better at telling its story than Shadowbringers and has a better story, doesn't mean that I don't have problems with 15. I did. We had a 5.5 hour fucking episode on it if you want to go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
Although I like it a lot, but
Yeah, it's good. I'm excited for the next one. I know we don't have that long. The plan right now that we have is give ourselves enough time to go through the content now, do the review on the stuff that's coming out, the patches in between, Shadowbringers, and whatever the hell the next one's going to be called.
Yeah.
It's been kind of delayed because of the whole COVID, but
yeah, you're talking about with 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the new expansion is announced, or when all of the content is released, and we can finish it by the time the new expansion drops, that's when we'll come back to Final Fantasy 14. I'm still working on the platinum. I'm pretty close. I've got a lot of stuff to do still, but
yeah, but it's only 4 things. You just have to do a lot of them.
yes,
Yeah. 4 trophies left. Thank you guys for listening. We will be back talking about Final Fantasy 15, my replay, and our DLCs.
Yep.
Month or 2. We'll see. I'm moving to Colorado for a seasonal job that'll last about 5 months. So there might be a bit of a delay starting the game. But yeah, listen to this. Listen to Nude Clan, guys. I should be on there for a couple episodes if you want to hear me on there. Next couple weeks. That'd be great. Check out the Godzilla podcast. There will be a brand new episode of the Godzilla podcast coming because I'm leaving right from here and going straight to Drew's house to record that.
Yep, we got a couple shows on the network that are no longer active but still have a lot of great content. We have the Puff Puff Hour, a Dragon Quest podcast. Caleb Craig from Nude Clan and a couple other buddies running that. We have For a Few Chickens More, a Song of Schweiss and Johnson, me and my friend James reviewing every episode of Game of Thrones. We have a big backlog of that. We've got Super Sexy Swinging Fan Fiction. Everybody knows what that is. And Getting Fat with Caleb and Joe is backlog. Got some great stuff on there.
Real quick update on the movie. Production company is pushing it. I know some people listened to the Getting Fat episode where we said it was coming out in September. Obviously, that didn't happen. I guess they're just pushing the movie to 2021.
Yeah, everything's getting delayed. So even stuff that doesn't really make sense to get delayed, it's almost like an excuse. It's like, we don't want to release it yet.
It's because it's not going to make as much money if people don't feel safe leaving the house. You got half the people don't give a fuck and are doing it, so we're at half capacity.
Yeah,
that's why every business is at half capacity right now. So just going for
it's
it
half
is
give a fuck.
Okay,
that's really what it means.
Yeah, that is half give a fuck. Like Utah doesn't give a fuck, but I went to California and everybody was wearing masks. And by the way, I give a fuck more than the people in Utah. I think in general around me, and I fucking got COVID anyway. But
yeah. Little bitch.
Yeah, it's about trying not to spread it as much.
Yeah.
Much more than it is about not receiving it, but no one gives a fuck. But it's only half. You got half the country that doesn't give a fuck.
That's fair. So I mean, you guys you can see it now though, right? Isn't it available on?
No, it's not. I can't put it out. Well, I can put it out, but it's not good for the company if I put it out on Vimeo to rent.
Oh, okay.
So that's the one area where I kept the rights to. I kept theatrical rights, which aren't going to happen, and then the Vimeo, I'm allowed to have my website. You can rent it from me.
Okay.
But I'm gonna wait till they release it, so it's all released at one time.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So no one pirates it.
Yeah, it just sucks
because puts it out, and then they get mad, and then they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks because it was so long ago, and it's been done for a while. It's just everything's getting delayed.
I mean, it's frustrating, but it's just what it is. I'm trying to make another movie. But I'm not going to ask for any crowdfunding or anything until the other movie is out.
Yeah. Got to deliver the first.
Just deliver the goods on the first one. Deliver the Indiegogo like promises and keep those. And so anyways, thank you guys for the support. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. Tweet me at Joseph DeGolier. Tweet Schweiss at UFF Podcast. And join our Discord, which is a it's a pinned tweet. It's in my Twitter description. It's a pinned tweet on at New Clan Podcast.
And it's a pinned tweet on mine.
Yeah, exactly. So go join our Discord. Join the discussion. We love hanging out on Discord. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, a lot of great people on there. Until next time, guys, as always, enjoy the grind.
Ultima Final Fantasy is a podcast created by Geekdom Entertainment and is executive produced by Joseph DeGolier, Caleb Schweiss, Caleb Craig, and Cameron Wilson. Find out more through geekdomentertainment.com.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for your shit talking, Krinital.
Yeah.
I see you in there.
If we ever need a autistic encyclopedia, we know exactly where to go. No, just kidding. Your ability to consume and give a shit about lore is pretty impressive. But maybe you should start Ultima Final Fantasy Wikipedia, the podcast. That could be your thing.
It's funny because he had the same
Super
complaints about
deeps.
the story when we were going through it, and somehow he was able to pay attention to all of it and remember that shit.
Yeah, I don't
Whatever,
know.
man.
Some people have perfect memories. For everyone
I
else.
only remember what I give a shit about. That turns
Yeah.
out to be the,
Hey, thanks a lot though, and especially thank you to hang out. Thank you for everyone who hung out with us for this expansion. That was really awesome. We really appreciate it. All the help was great. We rarely wanted for party members, which was awesome. So thank you all, and we'll let you know when we're coming back to it. And we will see you guys again next time.